Today is the 31st Sunday of the year. It is also All Saints' Day. Our gospel is taken from the beginning of the famous Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel. It's that section we commonly know as the Beatitudes. As I reflected on this gospel, I was drawn to pay particular attention to the introductory words rather than to the Beatitudes themselves. And it does strike me that in the introductory words, we encounter Jesus presented as teacher, someone who speaks with authority, and those who listen are disciples. It's this fact of being a disciple, if we are a disciple, that allows us to hear these words with greater openness and experience their transforming possibility. Something that I don't think is available to someone who is not a disciple. Let's reflect on the opening words then. Matthew says, Jesus went up the mountain. After he sat down, his disciples came to him and he began to speak. He taught them. Now, there's a fair bit in that sentence. First of all, the mountain. We shouldn't be looking for a particular geographical site in Palestine. This is almost certainly a symbolic statement because mountains were places of divine revelation, theophanies. Recall Moses on Mount Sinai many, many years before. God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai and gave the great promise that forms a golden thread throughout the Bible. I shall be with you, and I shall be with you as who I am. God is I am who I am. What is important in that encounter on Mount Sinai is that Moses is not the focus of the attention. Moses is rather the messenger. God is the focus. God is revealing the divine self. In the Beatitudes and in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is the focus of attention. He is the teacher. He is the origin of revelation here. He speaks with authority. Listen to the words with which Matthew concludes the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 7. He says, "When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, not like the scribes." So we're invited to reflect on Jesus as the teacher, one who speaks with authority, the authority of God. And we are called into relationship with him. Matthew's gospel, significantly, almost the last words, Matthew's gospel says, "All authority in heaven and on earth have been given to me." Jesus leaves the disciples with that word. And the disciples then becomes messengers of the teacher. We are not the teacher, as it were. It is our task, as baptized into Christ, to be the place where Jesus himself enters the world. Our presence becomes a word spoken by God. It takes enormous work, paradoxically, to get to this point in our lives. Sadly, we put most of our effort on achieving certain virtues, as if we could impress God. The aim of the Christ life is to be a disciple, one who enters into a special commitment and relationship with the teacher. One commentator writes of discipleship in this way: to become his disciple, intellectual or even moral aptitudes were not important. It's not as if you can graduate to discipleship because you're talented and because you've worked very hard. It's rather unnerving, actually. Jesus simply says, come, follow me. Enter this relationship in which you experience me as your life teacher, that together we will grow as one, come to be one. So the discipleship is focused on Jesus. We become Christ persons. St. Paul puts it beautifully in his letter to the Galatians. I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. In the Eucharist, we acclaim at the end of the Eucharistic prayer, through him, with him, in him. We can also flip that over, if you like, and hear Jesus say, through you, with you, in you. The teacher speaks to the disciple, and the teacher comes into the world through the disciple. If we have this growing and ever deepening relationship with Jesus, we will be on a path of learning that never ends. And it's not about acquiring knowledge as if we could find the right books, learn the right information, observe the right laws, and this would constitute us as disciples. That's not so. We become disciples by grace. We are called because for God's unfathomable reasons, God wanted to call us. It is our task to let the teacher teach us, to let Jesus draw us ever more deeply into him so that we become one with him. That is what it means to be a disciple. Being one with him, we will hear his words differently. We will see the world differently. It will transform us.